this is Todd Tretchler, and my guest today is Dietmar Aust, and you are in Germany. Whereabouts in Germany are you?
The middle western part. I live off Cologne.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I've been to Cologne and Düsseldorf.
Oh, they don't like each other a lot.
I know. I know.
I was not born in Cologne, so I'm fine. I just moved here.
So, Dietmar, first of all, congratulations on winning along with Dimitri and Morten in the ORDS category, so the Oracle REST Data Services for the Devies. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Well deserved. I know that you blog prolifically. I've been reading some of your blogs, and I was actually interested in your abstract for the DOA Apex Connect. And so it was, yes, it was in German. I was reading it.
So which one? The ORDS one?
The ORDS one, yes. The one where you talked about configuring and installing ORDS with Apache Tomcat using the Apache JServe protocol, AGP, and I think you used XE in it, and Apex. And you talked about, how do you set that up for production?
Right.
I was interested about that in terms of production. I wouldn't have really thought XE, although for certain use cases, it's absolutely perfect for production. But you were using it more as an example of just an easy database.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So with the XE, I could then just have like all the relevant infrastructure components and just a database, which I could run off my VM. So I certainly use XE.
Excellent. So I was very interested in that in terms of, you were talking about how to set up ORDS in a production environment, and you were stepping people through step by step of how to actually do both the installation and configuration, what to watch out for. What were some of the critical points that you dealt with there for the audience?
Well, I built it in a way that you could really take the first step, setting up ORDS in a standalone mode, and then moving on step by step to a more complex setup. So the standalone ORDS setup is just for development environments that you run just the WAR file with the built-in Jetty. And the next step would be to deploy that into a regular Tomcat. So it's better managed in that way. The next step would be to use an Apache HTTP server in front of that, so that you could offload the images to the Apache, to have caching, to have on-the-fly compression, and all kinds of security features just as well. That makes so much sense nowadays, especially if you use that with Apex, where you could, in earlier days, I would always have like the I directory on the server. And whenever I did an upgrade, I would replace the I directory with their respective version. So you have 405, 406, whatever. And nowadays, I always use a specifically named directory like I501, I502, I503. I use a caching of 10 years on that file system, and I register that I path in the Apex instance. So this way I have the perfect setup. It's perfectly cached, but still if I do an upgrade, it's immediately changed because I get different URLs. And so over time, I have figured out many ways how to have a setup which is easy to maintain and has like a perfect balance of high performance and also like ease of maintenance. Things have changed over the years, and it's a perfect platform. Not everybody, like for Q&A systems, you might not need that to go the full way of the full stack. Yeah. But it gives you a great platform, because with many customers, I also like to integrate the Active Directory using modauth curb on the Apache side. So that's a really nice integration, and you can use the Apache as a web application firewall and have security modules on there. And that's a standard setup which the operations team can work with very well. So,
yes.
good.
I noticed you were on when you're talking about security in there, you're mentioning the Auth2, and you pointed towards Karsten's blog on that.
Right.
And so for some good details there. So explain to me, I was checking out the reverse proxy. Okay, the value of actually using the reverse proxy, that wire protocol there, it was interesting. The Apache.org site has this ominous warning: do not enable proxy until you have secured your server. Apparently they think that leaving open proxies is not only dangerous to your network, but to the internet as well.
Well, I mean,
how are you using that?
Yeah, it depends on the kind of proxy you use, especially how you configure that in the Apache. I mean, the Apache can work as a true proxy where you just enter the network through the Apache and then you can go anywhere. But the way we're using is we turn the proxy functionality off, and we use the proxy directive to use like /ords, and that is it's using AGP to connect to the Tomcat. And we also do a local binding of the Tomcat so that only the local Apache is allowed to talk to the Tomcat. So it is a secured setup, although I'm by no means a security expert. But this overall platform gives you just so many options to even use more tighter security, although the standard setup that I propose is already quite secure. Quite
sufficient. So it's interesting. You said in your one of your presentations, you said ORDS has grosse potential, which isn't gross, it's actually huge potential.
Großes Potenzial.
So why do you say that? Why do you think ORDS has so much potential? Why is it so useful? I mean, you pointed out that it's very flexible.
Right. Well, I mean, actually, it's the use cases you look at from a pure Apex point of view, it's not that interesting. ORDS as such, from my point of view, has like two different major areas of focus. One is using it as an infrastructure component for running Apex, or as being an over toolkit application per se, running any PL/SQL application with the over toolkit from the database. But the other side is true REST functionality. So when you look at Apex, we can do basically everything just with the standard mechanism that are baked into Apex, which is great.
Yeah.
But from ORDS really has a huge potential in two directions. One is you enable other applications to interface with the Oracle database. So what I see my clients doing is like having a bidirectional interface to SAP, for example. So you use Apex Web Service or other PL/SQL packages to access the web services from SAP to get the data and use that with Apex. But also at the same time, you want SAP to allow to talk to the Oracle database in a standard way. And this is like the perfect mechanism to enable that. You get so much functionality out of the box, like automatic binding of variables, and you can access all the header variables, and you can just easily have just a SQL query, and it's all converted to JSON by going backwards to your client. And there is so much stuff out of the box available, which makes it then easy to deliver the data. So, but this is more to the outside as an interface technology.
So you're using actually ORDS there to actually bridge the gap between SAP and the Oracle database in that sense.
Yeah, Also, yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
bi-directional both ways to.
Yeah.
Great.
Exactly.
So you mentioned your clients. Sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
one more thing. I mean, even more like nowadays, I think with REST, it's really powerful and interesting when you think of mashup applications. For example, using the OAuth 2 protocol, you can now build an HTML5 application which is able to authenticate you as an end user to your Google account so that you can read the calendar data, you can enter the calendar entries, and then you can connect to To-Do and get your to-do list, and then you even connect to ORDS and talk to your database and get your action items from whatever client. And so you can build a coherent application interface using data from different data sources. And so this is, for me, the true power of REST-based applications, so that you can mesh the data and to build an overall great experience.
Excellent. So, Dietmar, you mentioned your clients and that you've obviously been doing this for a long time. I noticed that you said you've been doing Apex exclusively since 2006.
Right.
What are some of the more interesting projects that you've worked on in terms of features where you use the database, favorite features, but interesting project, large scale?
Right. So I've been doing Oracle stuff for 18 years, first 3 years in consulting, and started as a freelance consultant in 2000. And there I even had like a project at the German Postbank. Postbank.
Post office, yeah.
Right, the IT daughter of them. And we used Oracle Portal to basically build their intranet platform. They use a lot of documents there, and they document their applications and their progress, issue lists and whatever. And so we used Oracle Portal there. They have like 2,000 users, and they even leveraged that to provide for the Postbank itself their the organizational handbook, I guess. So several thousand users. So that was quite interesting, and they're still using it to the day. So,
wow. Excellent.
Well,
long emoji there.
Support, but it's still running. But also there, I found it quite interesting that a tool is just a tool. I mean, I've learned so many things over the years, but with that respect, a tool is just a tool. I mean, Oracle Portal provided mechanisms to store files, and you could have a file system like folder structure, and you could have categories and whatever. So, but this is just the tool level. You would still need to agree among the relevant managers and everybody who's using it that they follow the same guidelines, that they use the same semantics on how to tag documents so that you don't get lost in a complete chaos. And that was difficult. So I've often learned in my project that it's so more important also to be good on the soft skill side, to talk with people and to get them on board and to get agreement and those kind of things. Quite often the technology is not really the killer of the project.
Yeah.
Another one I did at the German telecom shops, I guess in 2007. That was under immense time pressure. The German telecom shops, they had a problem, and they couldn't solve it themselves.
Yeah.
They had like 800 shops and 6,000 users. And in order, I mean, when you go into a shop, you buy a phone or you sign a new contract.
Yeah.
They would enter that into their order entry system.
Yeah.
But they would also like have to scan that using scan codes to get the bonus. So what kind of product and how the margin was, whatever.
Yeah.
And so the labor union at some point said, this is too cumbersome. This is just too much for our employees. You have 3 months time to fix that, else all of them will get the maximum bonus.
Oh,
right?
wow.
And that would have been so expensive.
Yeah.
For so many people. So they asked T-Systems whether they could build something with J2EE, and they said, well, no, it'll take us at least 6 months, if not longer.
Yeah.
And so I came in and I suggested Apex using Oracle with a 2-node rack,
Yeah.
and redundant internet application servers. And they believed I could pull that off, and I did.
Wow.
But they gave me a hard time because like we had 2 months time developing, and 1 month was the pilot. And even like a few weeks before going live, we had to change the complete data model because the data source we were using was not suitable because of the timing. The data came in too late.
Oh, wow.
So it was such a hard time. But actually it was interesting because we had like 400,000 hits per day on the system.
Wow.
Nowadays you have many even more large-scale systems running Apex, but at the time it was one of the larger ones, and it was interesting to see how well Apex could adapt to a changing data model and that kind of time pressure. So I was impressed with Apex and its flexibility.
Just the rapid application development got you through it. Nice. Obviously, you love Apex and ORDS, otherwise you wouldn't blog so much about them. Is there any other like cool tools that you're working with at the moment, or interesting technologies that you're maybe not in production but you're playing with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking into the REST-based applications more. As I said, the mashups, I find that quite intriguing to really build stuff based on that.
Yeah.
Also, like WebSockets, we have to know about that. So it changes the way your web application interacts with the server side. So what we typically did over the years was always like poll the server side if there is a change in a changing event.
Yeah.
For example, is the job finished, or I don't know, live updates of Twitter feeds, whatever. So you would always poll the server side. But nowadays, using WebSockets or other technologies, you can have the server side call your browser with that event, and then you can update the data, which is a lot more efficient. So I'm definitely also looking into that. And aside from that, I mean, Apex is great in leveraging modern technologies like HTML5 features, or with the universal theme, you have a fully responsive environment, which is just given to you. Or you can build mobile applications, and you have with dynamic actions, you have a highly interactive website in a transparent and clear way, using JavaScript in a declarative fashion. And that's really nice. But also, actually, I'm going at the same time back to the basics, in a sense that, I mean, even Michael Jordan, he practiced like the basic throw every time, every day. And so I find myself looking also again into like DBA stuff, performance tuning, and building installers for the stuff I do, so I can automate more. So really understanding and knowing the fundamentals is highly critical for me too.
I mean, you didn't suddenly wake up and say, "Oh, I'm going to DOAG and I'm going to present there on Oracle technology." How did you get to this point?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I always found myself like, I mean, first you really have to get into the whole community and sharing thing, I guess. So in 2006, many of us in the community, like Dennis Kubitschek or John Scott and Dimitri Gilis and others, there were so many, Patrick Wolf, who later joined the Apex team. So there were so many in there, and we started first to ask questions, but then also to answer questions. And at some point we found ourselves like in a competition. Who's the fastest answering the question in a qualified way?
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes it was like, it only takes you 5 minutes, or you have like the script, the solution already recorded, or it might take you even 4 hours, because you would have to like rebuild the test case, have the same problem, ask yourself, what is he doing? Why is he doing that? That is what he wants to accomplish. Then you figure out you have a problem there, and then you look for a solution. So by doing all that, you get so deep into the technology, and also like then you have lots of things to share. But the way I really came into giving the presentation stuff, I guess Scott Spendolini, he invited me to speak about this project at the German telecom shops at Kscope in 2008 in New Orleans. That was my first presentation at Kscope, and since then I only missed one, I guess, in Long Beach.
The Boston conference.
Yeah. Thank you. Just rub it in.
No, I'm saying in general.
Yeah. So
it makes you feel better. I'm going to miss the one in Chicago. So
yeah, we'll make it the best. But you see, Kscope. I just love Oditag and the folks there. As I always like to say, it's like seeing your family just without the fighting, right? It's so awesome. And so I started in New Orleans giving that presentation, and from then on I sort of was hooked. So I had so many things to talk about, and I started sharing at the conferences.
Let's wreck this together, okay? Switching gears here. Sometimes people say, okay, Apex is only good for Excel replacement, or it's only good for quick and dirty demo type applications. You obviously don't believe that, because I mean, you've used it at major, like German Telekom, Deutsche Telekom, and stuff like that. You've used it in time-sensitive scenarios where you have 3 months to deliver, and you obviously don't bet your project on untested technology.
Right.
What would you say some of the hurdles are for people that want to implement Apex and get it going and using it?
Actually, I would rather want to talk about seeing Apex as a professional development tool, because what you said, the problems that Apex is facing is a misconception which was like furthered by Oracle Sales itself, because they positioned it as being just an Access or Excel replacement. At the time made sense because they had ADF and whatever, and so they needed to position it somehow. And from my point, it does a great job in that, but it can do so much more. And to me, the biggest difference is who is actually using the technology. So in the beginning, selling it this way, the clients wouldn't put their high-end profile software developers on the team, but the people who were sitting around anyway and didn't have much to do. So you would have different types of developers using that technology. And what I see nowadays more and more, and you can see that on the conferences as well, is you have a shift in competency. You have now highly skilled professional software developers coming from a Java background or whatever, or .NET, and they see the benefits of Apex, but they also have a different mindset, and they bring different aspirations to the table. So in the end, you can also now see test-driven development, regression testing, continuous integration testing, with all the typical tools. Hudson, Jenkins, whatever. You can even have like static code analysis with Scope or other tools. So now you have a shift in mindset. I mean, Apex is now like 12 years old almost, right? It started in 2004. So now it's so mature, and people with mature computer science skills are now joining the game. And so this changes many things. Apex still has like Yeah, you can say issues with version control in a sense because it's metadata driven, and so you have IDs in the export files, which is not so easy to handle. But you can work around that and find a good process which enables you to do everything in a very highly professional way. So. And at the same time, it has many benefits that other languages cannot provide.
So in what way?
Well, I mean, in one sense, since it's metadata driven, you can query the repository, you can have like a quality reports on how everything is used. Is it following all the different standards? So you can already query that on the repository. And one thing also, when you look at the open source communities, and yeah, this is all great, but whenever there's a completely new release, stuff breaks. Right? So the things don't automatically still run the old software that you have written. And Oracle just makes sure that everything works, right? So there is definitely an advantage in also using proprietary vendor who takes care of these.
Dietmar, good job.